The hall of the Starbund Court was larger than any city Aaron Hale had ever seen on Earth. It did not feel built so much as grown. The walls curved upward like the inside of a giant shell, glowing softly with living light that changed color as people moved. The air was warm and calm, carrying a quiet hum that made Aaron's chest vibrate when he breathed. Aaron stood alone in the center of the chamber. He wore a simple human uniform, gray and unmarked, standing in sharp contrast to the many figures watching him. Around him sat members of the Empire's highest council, beings of different shapes and sizes, some tall and thin like walking glass, others broad and scaled, others wrapped in flowing robes that hid their forms completely. Their eyes, real or artificial, were fixed on him. A human had never stood here before. Only hours earlier, Aaron had been deep inside the core city of Vierx Prime, hands shaking as he rewired an ancient energy system that even the Empire's best minds had failed to fix. The world's main grid had been collapsing, tearing space apart piece by piece. Evacuation had been impossible. Panic had spread across the planet. Aaron had not been the strongest or the smartest in the room. He had only been human. He had looked at the broken system and ignored the rules everyone else followed. He used outdated human logic, risky shortcuts, and a solution built on trial, error, and instinct. It should not have worked, but it did. The grid stabilized. The planet survived. And now he was here. At the far end of the chamber, raised high above everyone else, sat Queen Valoria. Her throne looked like a piece of the stars themselves, floating without support. She appeared tall and calm, her form wrapped in long silver-blue robes that shimmered like deep space. Her face was smooth and unreadable, her eyes ancient and bright, holding centuries of knowledge and quiet authority. When she spoke, the room listened. "Aaron Hale of Earth," the Queen said, her voice gentle yet powerful, echoing through the hall without effort. "You have preserved one of our core worlds. By law and tradition, you are owed a reward." Aaron kept his posture straight, though his heart beat hard. He had been warned about this moment. The Empire's customs were old and strange. Refusing them could be dangerous. "I acted to save lives," Aaron said carefully. "I did not expect a reward." A soft ripple of sound moved through the court. Some thought it was amusement. Others thought it was doubt. The Queen lifted one hand and silence returned. "Your humility is noted," she said, "but tradition remains." At her signal, the floor in front of Aaron shifted. Light rose from the ground, forming a wide platform. 3 figures slowly emerged from it. They were women, all different, all striking in their own way. The first stood tall and confident, her posture perfect. She wore a uniform marked with symbols of command. Her eyes were sharp, always watching, always calculating. This was a woman of strategy and power, someone who could command fleets and bend wars with a single decision. The second woman glowed faintly, her skin marked with delicate patterns that pulsed with energy. She was genetically enhanced, the result of generations of careful design. Strength, intelligence, and longevity shaped her every movement. She represented legacy and perfection. The third woman stood slightly apart. She wore dark, simple clothing with no visible marks of rank. Her face was calm, almost unreadable. She did not look at Aaron directly. Instead, her gaze drifted across the room as if she were watching something no one else could see. The Queen's voice echoed again. "Choose one of the 3 women," she said. "By ancient right, she shall be yours, a companion, a bond, and a symbol of our gratitude." The words settled heavily on Aaron's shoulders. He had learned about this ritual during brief warnings, but standing here made it feel unreal. To the Empire, this was not cruelty. It was honor, a gift meant to bind heroes to the throne, to keep loyalty close and silent. Aaron looked at the 3 women again. The first met his gaze without fear. She had chosen power long ago. The second smiled faintly, confident in her worth. The third remained distant, her expression unchanged. The court waited. Aaron felt something twist inside him. This was wrong, not just uncomfortable but deeply wrong. He had grown up on Earth, a world full of mistakes, arguments, and broken systems. Humans fought, failed, and disagreed constantly, but they chose their own paths. Even when power tried to decide for them, humans pushed back. He looked around the chamber again. For all its beauty, something here felt heavy. The empire was strong, advanced, and ancient, but it felt frozen, trapped by its own traditions. Aaron's eyes slowly returned to the queen. She watched him closely now, not with anger, not with boredom, with interest. He realized then that she was not truly watching the choice. She was watching him. The queen had lived longer than human history could easily measure. She had seen heroes kneel, bargain, accept, and obey. This ritual had worked for centuries because no one dared to question it. Aaron swallowed. He thought of Earth, of broken cities rebuilt by stubborn hope, of people who asked why even when it was dangerous, of humans who survived not by being perfect but by being adaptable. He raised his hand. The court leaned forward. Slowly, deliberately, Aaron extended his finger. He did not point at the first woman. He did not point at the second. He did not point at the third. He pointed past them. He pointed at the throne. He pointed at Queen Valoria herself. A sharp intake of breath swept through the chamber. Some council members stood suddenly. Guards shifted their weapons, unsure whether to act. The living light of the walls flickered, responding to the sudden tension. The queen did not move. For a long moment, no one spoke. Aaron's arm did not shake, though his heart felt like it might break through his chest. "You told me to choose," Aaron said, his voice steady despite everything. "And I did." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in focus. The empire had just been challenged in a way it had not faced for thousands of years. And Aaron Hale, a human who refused to follow the expected path, stood alone at the center of it all as the future of two civilizations quietly shifted. Silence spread through the starbound court like a frozen wave. The sound of breathing, the low hum of the living walls, even the distant energy currents seemed to pause. Aaron Hale still stood with his arm raised, his finger pointing directly at Queen Valoria. No one moved. For the first time since Aaron had entered the chamber, the queen's expression changed. It was not anger. It was not shock. It was something far more dangerous to an ancient ruler: surprise. Slowly, she lowered her gaze to his hand, then back to his face. "You misunderstand the ritual," Queen Valoria said at last. Her voice was calm, but the air felt heavier with each word. "The choice is not symbolic, it is binding." "I understand," Aaron replied. He lowered his hand, but he did not step back. "That is why I chose carefully." A low murmur moved through the council seats. Some advisors spoke in quiet, urgent tones. Others watched Aaron as if he were a rare and unstable element that might explode at any moment. One of the guards took a step forward, metal boots striking the glowing floor. His hand rested on a weapon that hummed softly, ready to act. The queen lifted one finger. The guard froze. "Leave us," she said. The command was gentle but absolute. The guards hesitated. Dismissing security during a challenge was unheard of. Still, one by one, they stepped back into the shadows. The council members exchanged uneasy looks, but none dared to speak openly. The queen's gaze never left Aaron. "Human," she said, "you stand before a throne older than your species. Many have tried to test it. None have done so without regret." Aaron met her eyes. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him, but he did not look away. "I am not testing you," he said. "I am answering you." That earned him another long pause. The three women still stood on the platform behind him. The first looked tense now, her jaw tight. The second's faint smile had faded. The third woman, the quiet one, watched the queen instead of Aaron, her eyes sharp with curiosity. Queen Valoria leaned back slightly in her throne. "Tell me why," she said. Aaron exhaled slowly. He knew this moment mattered more than any technical solution he had ever created. "Your empire is powerful," he began. Your technology is beyond anything humans have built, but power is not the same as freedom. A few council members stiffened at the word. Aaron continued carefully but firmly. This ritual is called a reward, but it is not one. It binds people. It turns loyalty into ownership. The women you offered are respected, capable, and intelligent, but they are being treated as symbols, not as people. The Queen's eyes flickered briefly toward the platform. No one here is without choice, she said. Then let them refuse, Aaron replied, publicly, without consequence. The chamber grew colder. The Queen did not answer immediately. Aaron pressed on, knowing he might not get another chance. You saved your empire from collapse long before I ever arrived, but now it feels like it is standing still. Humans don't survive because we are perfect. We survive because we question things that stop making sense. He paused, then added quietly, including rulers. That word echoed like a stone dropped into deep water. Some council members rose halfway from their seats, outrage flashing across their features. One of them, tall and covered in gold-edged robes, pointed at Aaron. This is unacceptable, the advisor said sharply. He insults the throne. This is grounds for— Enough, the Queen said. The advisor fell silent at once. Queen Valoria stood. It was a simple movement, but it changed the entire room. The living light brightened, reacting to her presence. When she descended from the throne, the distance between her and Aaron vanished. She now stood only a few steps away from him. She was taller than he had expected. Humans are bold, she said softly. You mistake boldness for wisdom. Sometimes they are the same, Aaron replied. The Queen studied him closely, as if peeling back layers of thought and intention. Do you know how many worlds depend on the stability of this empire? Yes, Aaron said. That's why I spoke. Her expression hardened slightly. And if your words cause unrest, then the unrest was already there, he said. I just didn't pretend not to see it. The Queen turned away from him then, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. She looked at the council, at the silent guards, at the three women still standing on the platform. Dismiss the ritual, she said suddenly. A shock rippled through the room. One council member stood fully now. Your Majesty, this tradition binds our heroes to us. It preserves unity. It preserves obedience, the Queen replied. She turned back to Aaron. You have placed yourself in danger, she said, not just here but across the empire. I know, Aaron answered. Why? She asked. Aaron thought for a moment. Then he said, because if I stayed silent, I'd be helping something that feels wrong survive a little longer. The Queen was quiet for a long time. Finally, she gestured to the platform. The light beneath the three women faded and they stepped down freely. You are dismissed, the Queen told them. The first woman hesitated, clearly conflicted. The second bowed slightly and left without a word. The third paused, meeting the Queen's gaze. Something unspoken passed between them before she turned and followed the others. The court remained frozen, unsure what came next. Queen Valoria returned her attention to Aaron. You have broken an ancient expectation, she said. In doing so, you have revealed something uncomfortable. She stepped closer. I am alone, she said quietly, so softly that only Aaron could hear. Surrounded by loyalty, yet untouched by honesty. Aaron did not respond immediately. He had not expected this. I did not choose you because I desire ownership, the Queen continued. I chose you because you were willing to stand alone in this room and speak truth without a weapon, she straightened. You will not be punished, she announced, her voice carrying across the hall. Nor will this moment be erased. The council erupted into whispered chaos. Instead, she continued, the human Aaron Hale will remain as my guest and advisor. Aaron's breath caught. This is unprecedented, one advisor protested. So was saving Vierk's Prime, the Queen replied calmly. She looked back at Aaron, her eyes sharp and searching. You wanted partnership, she said. Let us see if your species is ready for what that truly means. The living light of the chamber shifted, opening pathways Aaron had not noticed before. The court slowly began to empty, leaving only the queen, Aaron, and the vast silence of history changing its course. Aaron stood still, aware that this was not a victory. It was a beginning. The days that followed felt unreal to Aaron Hale. He was no longer kept in guest quarters meant for short visits. Instead, he was given living space inside the inner ring of the royal complex, a place where only the most trusted figures of the empire were allowed to stay. The rooms were quiet, filled with soft light and moving walls that adjusted to his presence. Still, Aaron slept poorly. His mind stayed awake, replaying the moment in the court again and again. He had not planned to change an empire. He had only refused to accept something that felt wrong. Word of what happened spread quickly. Across Vierk's Prime and beyond, rumors moved faster than official statements. A human had challenged the ritual. The queen had ended it. No punishment followed. Instead, the human remained. Some praised the queen for wisdom. Others feared weakness. Many were simply confused. The empire had existed in balance for centuries. Stability was its greatest strength and its deepest weakness. Queen Valoria watched all of this quietly. From her private chamber, she observed reports, listened to advisors, and reviewed records of human history Aaron had provided. Wars, recoveries, failures, rebuilding. Again and again, humans fell and stood back up, not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. That idea unsettled her. She summoned Aaron on the fifth day. They met not in the grand court but in a smaller observation hall that overlooked the stars. No guards stood nearby. No council members waited to interrupt. Only space, endless and honest. "You are becoming a symbol," the queen said as Aaron joined her near the wide viewing window. "I didn't ask for that," Aaron replied. "No one ever does," she said. She turned toward him. "Some believe I have lost control." Aaron considered his words carefully. "Control isn't the same as leadership." She studied him, then gave a small nod. "You speak as if you have led." "I have failed," Aaron said, "more than once." That answer pleased her more than confidence would have. Over the following weeks, Aaron was included in discussions that shaped entire systems. Trade routes, resource allocation, energy reform. He did not command, he did not rule. He asked questions others had stopped asking long ago. Why do we do it this way? What happens if it breaks? Who pays the cost when it does? At first, the council resisted. They dismissed his ideas as human chaos. But slowly, results spoke for him. Small changes led to increased efficiency. Flexible systems adapted better to unexpected problems. Worlds once strained by rigid rules began to stabilize, not because humans were superior, but because humans allowed room for change. The abolished ritual became the center of the greatest debate. Many noble families had built influence around it. Ending it disrupted old power structures. One evening, Queen Valoria stood before the council and spoke openly. "The ritual bound heroes," she said, "but it also bound us to fear of losing control. An empire that cannot accept choice will one day be destroyed by it." The vote that followed was not unanimous, but it passed. Across the empire, new laws replaced ancient customs. Companionship became voluntary. Service became chosen, not demanded. For the first time in generations, citizens questioned tradition without punishment. Some worlds resisted, others embraced it. Humanity's role grew quietly, not as conquerors, not as rulers, as examples. Aaron often thought of Earth during those days, of its noise, its mess, its constant disagreement. He realized then that humanity's strength had never been perfection. It was refusal to stay broken. One night, long after the stars dimmed to simulated dusk, Aaron stood alone on a balcony overlooking the capital world. Queen Valoria joined him without announcement. "You changed the course of this empire," she said. "No," Aaron replied. "You did," she smiled faintly. "I allowed it." They stood in silence for a long moment. "Other species are watching," she said. "They see humans differently now." Aaron looked out at the stars. That scares some people. It should, the queen said. Change always does. She turned to face him fully. I will not rule forever. Aaron looked at her surprised. When I am gone, she continued, this empire must survive without a single voice guiding it. Humans understand that better than most. You don't want a replacement, Aaron said. You want a system. Yes, she replied, one that can question itself. The first joint council between humans and the Empire was announced soon after. Not as a treaty of dominance, but of shared learning. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists. Philosophers debated governance. Soldiers trained together, not for conquest, but for defense. The galaxy noticed. Humanity's name began to carry a different meaning. Not weak. Not reckless. Unyielding. On the day Aaron prepared to return to Earth for the first time since his arrival, Queen Valoria walked with him to the departure platform. You will be remembered, she said. So will you, Aaron replied. She extended her hand not as a ruler but as an equal. Aaron took it. As his ship lifted into the dark, he looked back at the vast world below, an empire still ancient, still powerful, but no longer frozen. Far across the stars, humanity's quiet mark had been made. Not through force, but through the courage to point at the throne and choose something better.